Laken Riley was a 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia, and on the morning of February 22nd, 2024, she was brutally murdered while out for a run. The man convicted of Riley's murder was an undocumented immigrant who had previously been arrested for shoplifting and child endangerment. It's a horrific, gut-wrenching story, and it's the exact kind of emotional, tragic event that is ripe for political exploitation by the worst people imaginable. On the surface, the Laken Riley Act seems impossible to vote against. It's named for a terrible tragedy and promises to do something about a broken immigration system that both parties have seemed to benefit from doing absolutely nothing about. But as a lawyer, when I look at the text, I don't see a common sense safety bill. I see a constitutional trap. So today we're going to do a political autopsy to figure out exactly why Democrats walked right into it. The act that bears her name was introduced by Alabama Senator Katie Britt and designed by Republicans not as a serious policy solution, but as a political trap. Representative Sean Casten probably put it best. The purpose wasn't to make us safer, it was to give a soundbite that allows people to say Congressperson X voted today to keep murdering illegal immigrants in our country. Republicans even used a closed rule vote to block any amendments, ensuring Democrats faced a poison pill: vote yes and endorse Trump, or vote no and face attack ads. And that policy is extreme. The law now requires ICE to detain any non-US national, including Dreamers, who are merely charged with or arrested for low-level criminal offenses like shoplifting, with no bond hearing. And again, emphasis on not convicted, simply just accused. The bill, which is now law, equates a mere admission of a minor offense to a conviction and defers to local theft laws, creating a due process nightmare where identical acts are punished differently across state lines by the federal government. An undocumented mother arrested on charges of shoplifting diapers could be put into mandatory detention for the duration of her deportation proceedings. A law-abiding DACA recipient could be jailed indefinitely because a vengeful neighbor got them arrested on a trivial charge, all at enormous taxpayer expense. The bill throws the principle of innocent until proven guilty into a wood chip. It also grants state attorneys general the power to sue the federal government over immigration decisions. Any state AG can drag the Department of Homeland Security into court the second they allege $100 in harm. And here's the most cynical part. The Laken Riley Act would not have prevented Laken Riley's murder. The bill provides no new resources for the massive detention surge it mandates. It rests on the false premise that people who commit petty theft are likely to commit violent crimes. It rests on the false premise that immigrants are more likely to commit violent crime than anyone else in this country. And it diverts scarce law enforcement resources away from genuinely dangerous criminals. It seems like all the Republicans cared about was framing the Democrats as pro-white girl murder and pro-open borders to virtue signal to their base. And for them, the vote itself was the victory. They didn't need the bill to become law, they just needed the roll call. The bill's true purpose was to create a self-fulfilling prophecy, to induce chaos, and then use that very same chaos as proof that the system is broken and the Democrats are the ones to blame. With a Republican-led Congress, the bill obviously passed, but the real story here isn't that the bill passed, it's how it passed. The real story is the 46 House Democrats and 12 Senate Democrats who crossed the aisle to vote for it. This wasn't just a few vulnerable members from border districts. It was new swing state senators like Ruben Gallego from Arizona, who sponsored the bill, by the way, Alyssa Slotkin from Michigan. We're talking both senators from Georgia, the state where Riley was killed, Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff. Why did so many Democrats cave on a bill that they knew was terrible? The answer is simple. they're cowards, and their primary calculus was their own political viability going forward. What's the point of having a Democrat in office if they will capitulate to the most brazenly partisan traps set out before them, this just being the first? Take Laura Gillen, who won a Republican seat held by a razor-thin margin. She campaigned on a pathway to citizenship, but justified this very vote by talking about safety and deterring crime. A complete and abject concession to the Republican narrative, all in the name of her own political survival. Then there is John Fetterman. This is a man who supported Bernie Sanders, a man whose very own wife came to the country as an undocumented child, a man who has repeatedly said we must protect dreamers, and yet he didn't just vote for this bill. He co-sponsored it, met with Trump about it. He attended the signing ceremony. Mind you, not in a suit. So please, explain to me how you go from championing dreamers to shilling for a bill that puts those same people at risk of mandatory detention for a minor, unproven accusation. Fetterman is the primary example of this betrayal, because it's a betrayal that's not just of the party's rhetoric, but their own personal stories and the values that they have claimed to hold not that very long ago. So, what is the official story? How do these Democrats justify a vote that seems to betray their own principles? They talk about common sense and safety, of course. Fetterman specifically embraced the GOP narrative and ate that shit up like slop. No family should have to endure the pain of losing a loved one to preventable violence, he said, portraying the bill as giving authorities tools to prevent tragedies like this one. Nevada's Catherine Cortez Masto, where Trump won by 3 points last fall, said that anyone who commits a crime should be held accountable. Wow, great mind-boggling take there. She said that her state wants solutions that keep families safe. But it's just really interesting to me, because did she forget about innocent until proven guilty? Did she forget about the safety of undocumented communities? Is the bill common sense, as Fetterman put it? No, of course not. Fetterman himself practically admitted the whole issue is about conceding to the Republican framing on the bill, asking reporters to daydream for a second about his own life, asking them to imagine being in a Walmart in Scranton and trying to defend a no vote on a bill to deport immigrants charged with a crime. That should tell you all you need to know. He's not making a policy argument. He's admitting that his vote is based entirely on avoiding a difficult political conversation with certain members of his constituency. He's admitting that he's afraid of the 30-second attack ad that would be easy for the Republicans to make simply because of how they framed this bill.
Soft on crime, John Fetterman is a weak, pathetic loser who can't be bothered to wear a suit or stop criminals from roaming the streets. He can't be trusted.
He wasn't alone by any means. Representative Susie Lee of Nevada admitted herself that the bill was not perfect and wished it had a little more due process, which should alarm everyone because she's speaking about a fundamental constitutional right, like it's a seasoning that was lacking on a steak that she had just ordered. It's absolutely stunning to me how they could recognize the clear flaws in this bill, showing that the political expediency of the situation outweighed their own legislative integrity. This whole scenario reveals the modern trap for moderate Democrats, and they've already started eating. The strategy is to preemptively surrender on tough issues they think the Republicans won on in 2024 to avoid a 30-second attack ad in the general election. It's a stunning admission. And if you're finding this breakdown valuable and you're as frustrated as I am, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It's the best way to help get this analysis out to more people. Okay, so what could they have done instead? Well, let's look at the arguments that they left on the table. Those who voted for this bill obviously caved into the Republican narrative, framing this bill as common sense, as preventing future tragedies, as them being the reasonable ones in Congress. This all just plays right into the Republicans' favor. By accepting this narrative in the first place, they have catered to the narrative that the solution is stripping the constitutional rights of people, virtue signaling, and fear-mongering are the way to solve the immigration issue in the United States, as opposed to respecting the rule of law, thinking critically about policy. Oh, what a dream. And addressing people with common humanity. They accepted the trap that there were only two options: this terrible bill or open borders. But that's a false choice, and that should be clear to everyone. There was a vast middle ground that they refused to acknowledge because it would have been politically difficult for them. They could have argued for due process and security, but they chose not even to have the fight. Here are the three slam dunk arguments, in my opinion, that they just chose to ignore. First, the due process argument. They could have stood firmly on the ground of the Constitution, 10 toes down.
10 toes down.
Representative Jennifer McClellan from Virginia provided the perfect template, voting no because she, quote, refused to support unconstitutional overreaching that undermines long-held American values of due process that assumes people are innocent until proven guilty. Progressives like Pramila Jayapal called it a highway to mass deportation, which it looks like we're already there. And AOC warned it suspends core American values. She's right. Yet, even Chuck Schumer didn't vote for the bill, but voted to advance it, showing how the party leadership just abjectly failed to resist. There's plenty of other avenues they could have attacked it from. They could have attacked it from the right, arguing that it was absolutely fiscally irresponsible and to the highest degree of hypocritical that the self-proclaimed party of fiscal responsibility passed a completely unfunded mandate. ICE itself says the bill is impossible to carry out and would require 118,000 extra beds, 40,000 added staff, and cost $83 billion, over 3 times ICE's current annual budget before the big beautiful bill. It's a private prison windfall disguised as policy, truly. And third, the practicality argument, which they also ignored, because they could have pointed out that the bill is completely unworkable and would divert scarce law enforcement resources from pursuing dangerous, violent criminals to detaining people accused of minor non-violent offenses. They had the arguments. They had the facts. They had the moral high ground. They just chose not to use any of them. So what's the long-term consequence? Well, these Democrats smilingly gave Republicans their best ammo: the ability to claim bipartisan support for treating immigrants like second-class citizens. They can now say even John Fetterman agrees with us. Pro-immigrant and civil rights groups are left scrambling. A base of progressive and libertarian support that may coalesce within the left, completely abandoned at the behest of this pro-crime, anti-rights policy. It throws other Democrats under the table in their ability to argue for humane reform, their ability to run in general elections. And some of them have already conceded that a mere accusation of a crime is acceptable cause for detention. I keep repeating that point because it is extremely important that we see what is being done here. Innocent until proven guilty is something you learn about in kindergarten. And what's the biggest long-term consequence of this vote? Look around. For how much Republicans and Democrats argued they wanted to put a bill on the table that actually looks to reform our immigration system, has there actually been any serious, good faith discussion about comprehensive immigration reform? No. Absolutely not. The conversation has been completely ceded to those who are now disappearing people on the streets without due process, sending them to torture prisons in foreign countries. And the Democrats have not only not done anything to try and bring about a solution, they've given Republicans yet another tool to carry out their fascist war against hardworking people aiming to live their lives in peace. Already, lawsuits in California and Texas are challenging the act's overreach, with courts questioning its $100 harm clause and its obvious due process violations. This law isn't just bad policy, it's a legal mess destined for years of courtroom battles. If you found this breakdown valuable and you're looking for principled analysis that cuts through the partisan noise, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Liking this video and sharing it with a friend is the single best way to help this channel grow. I'd be greatly appreciative of that because I think we need to find more people who are tired of the tribalism. You could follow me across all my socials, at vorleon, at Told You So Show. I'll be back making another video in a few weeks. Thanks for watching. I love you so much.